So July 18, I was working, I wanted to take a break, and I thought I'd go buy some groceries because that's what I do to relax. And so I'm walking to the grocery store, walking across the parking lot, and I see this older man coming kind of in my direction. I see that he's not walking very well. And so I think to myself, well, this guy probably will be open to me praying for him. And so I go up and I'm like, hey, I just asked him why he wasn't walking right. I don't remember how I said it, but he explained everything to me. He's talking about his knees, he's talking about his flat feet, problems that he's been having for a long time, surgery and so on. And I say, yeah, I used to have actually I still do have flat feet. I used to have real problems in my knees, now I wear inserts and blah, blah, blah. We talked that whole thing through. And I said, hey man, can I pray for you? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And so I kneeled down, I put my hand on his feet to pray for his feet. And pretty normal thing. I get the feeling that probably he is not really listening to me so much and kind of wants to move on to something else. And so I think, well, okay, I don't need to push this guy. So I wrap up my deal, I say amen, and I go to stand up, but I can't because he has just dropped his hand on my head and he's starting to pray. And so he says, Daddy, I just want to thank you for this brother. And he goes on to pray basically that he's like, I appreciate that this young man apparently goes everywhere and tries to do your stuff and heal people and prophesy everywhere he goes. And so I want to bless this ministry for that he would be encouraged and all this kind of stuff. He just prays a blessing for everything that I would call power evangelism. And so I'm like, what is going on? And so he stops praying for me. And I look at him and I say, you know, there aren't a whole lot of people who know how to call God Daddy. And something in what I said struck a chord in him real deep, and he could not speak for about 15 seconds. And then, because he's almost starting to cry, and he says, you know, anybody can become a father, but it takes someone special to be called a daddy. And we just stood there. It was crazy because like I had no idea what to say, and this statement that he had pulled out of his heart was so obviously like foundational to his experience of God, something that he had spent so many years like experiencing and searching out. I was just floored that he gave this thing to me just like that. And then he walked away. And it really impacted me, you know, because I mean, we were both crying. And anyway, I was really not expecting that. And so I walk over, I go buy my groceries, you know, but I'm really stunned by this experience. And so I made a decision. I thought that in telling me this mystery that he has realized, I see that as an invitation for me to join in this thing that he has discovered in God, how God is our daddy, as Jesus says. Or is it Paul? Anyway, God is our daddy. And so I decided I was going to engage with that. And so for the next 2 or 3 weeks, I just kept getting all sorts of stuff about how God is daddy and how I can relate to him that way, but in like a very real, very strong way of God telling me things. And so that was awesome, and that really rocked my boat. But I was not expecting that. When I walk up to this guy, I just thought, I'm just going to pray for this random person. But it turned out that he was actually more interested in praying for me than I was for him. And it ended up with me learning a lot about God.